The air in Chinatown hung heavy with the scent of incense and fear. The streets, usually bustling with life and color, now seemed cloaked in a somber shadow. The vibrant reds and golds of the lanterns appeared muted, as if the very essence of the place had been tainted by the recent tragedy. Detective Samantha Cho stood on the bustling street, the neon lights reflecting in her tired eyes. She had been working tirelessly, her mind racing with questions and possibilities. The case had consumed her, leaving her with little sleep and a growing sense of urgency. She had seen her share of darkness, but this case, the murder of Jae Hoon Park, felt different. It wasn't just another crime. It was a personal attack on the heart of the community. The brutality of the act had sent shockwaves through the tight-knit neighborhood, leaving everyone on edge. It clung to her like the humid night air, suffocating, relentless. The weight of the case pressed down on her shoulders, making each step feel heavier than the last. The fog that enveloped the streets seemed to mirror the cloud of uncertainty that hung over the investigation. Jae Hoon, a quiet shopkeeper, had been a man who knew everyone's name, who always had a kind word and a gentle smile. His shop had been a haven for many, a place where people felt seen and valued. His loss was not just a personal tragedy, but a communal one. Now his life had been brutally cut short, leaving a void in the community and a family shattered by grief. The scene of the crime was a stark reminder of the violence that had invaded their lives. A place once filled with warmth, now marked by sorrow and loss. Cho looked at the faces around her, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension in their eyes. The community was on edge, their usual sense of security shattered. Whispers of fear and speculation filled the air, as everyone wondered who could be responsible for such a heinous act. She understood their hesitation, the ingrained distrust of law enforcement that ran deep in immigrant communities. Years of marginalization and misunderstanding had built a wall of skepticism that was hard to break down. Cho knew she had to tread carefully, to earn their trust one step at a time. They had learned to rely on their own, to keep their heads down and their mouths shut. The unspoken rule of survival in a world that often overlooked them. But this time, the silence was deafening, and Cho needed to break through it to find the truth. But Cho had made a promise, to Jae Hoon's family and to herself, that she would find justice, no matter the cost. She would navigate the labyrinth of secrets and lies, confront the darkness head-on, and bring light back to the streets of Chinatown. The journey ahead was fraught with challenges, but Cho's resolve was unwavering. She would not rest until the shadow that had fallen on Chinatown was lifted, and peace was restored to the community she had come to care for deeply. Hyejin Park, Jae Hoon's widow, sat huddled on the floor of their small apartment, her eyes red-rimmed, her face etched with a grief so profound it was palpable. The room was dimly lit, casting long shadows that seemed to mirror the darkness enveloping her heart. Every corner of the apartment held memories of Jae Hoon, making his absence even more unbearable. Beside her, clutching a worn teddy bear, sat her daughter Soo-jin, her usually bright eyes clouded with confusion and fear. The teddy bear, once a symbol of comfort, now seemed to be a fragile shield against the harsh reality that had shattered their world. Soo-jin's small frame trembled slightly, her young mind struggling to grasp the permanence of her father's absence. Cho's heart ached for them, for the unimaginable pain they were enduring. She had seen many families torn apart by tragedy, but this one felt different. The raw emotion in the room was almost suffocating, and Cho found herself fighting back tears. She knew she had to remain strong for them, to be the pillar they needed in this moment of despair. She had seen the worst of humanity, the depths of its cruelty, but the sight of a child robbed of her father never failed to stir a deep well of anger and protectiveness within her. The innocence lost, the future forever altered. It was a pain that no one should have to endure, especially not a child. Cho's resolve hardened as she looked at Soo-jin, silently vowing to bring justice for her and her mother. Kneeling before Hyejin, Cho offered what words of comfort she could muster, knowing that language would always be a barrier, but hoping that the sincerity in her eyes would somehow translate. She spoke softly, her voice a gentle murmur in the quiet room, trying to convey her empathy and determination. Hyejin's eyes met hers, and for a brief moment, Cho saw a flicker of hope amidst the sorrow. She vowed to find those responsible, to ensure that Jae Hoon's death would not be in vain. This promise was not just to Hyejin and Soo-jin, but to herself as well. It was a commitment to fight against the darkness that had invaded their lives, to bring light and justice where there was now only pain and loss. As Cho looked from the grieving mother to the frightened child, she felt the weight of her promise settle heavily upon her. It was a burden she was willing to bear, a responsibility she would not shy away from. The stakes were higher now, the mission more personal. Every step she took from this moment on would be driven by the faces of Hyejin and Sujin, by the need to restore some semblance of peace to their shattered lives. This was no longer just a case, it was personal. The lines between duty and personal vendetta blurred, and Cho embraced the challenge with a fierce determination. She would not rest until justice was served, until the promise she made was fulfilled. The journey ahead was fraught with obstacles, but Cho was ready to face them head-on, driven by the weight of her promise and the strength of her resolve. The investigation was proving to be an uphill battle. Every lead seemed to evaporate into thin air, leaving Cho with nothing but dead ends and mounting frustration. Chinatown, a tight-knit community bound by tradition and wary of outsiders, held its secrets close. The vibrant streets and bustling markets masked an undercurrent of fear and suspicion. Witnesses were reluctant to talk, their fear of retaliation a tangible thing. The silence was almost deafening, a wall that Cho struggled to penetrate. Cho understood their silence, the deeply ingrained instinct to protect their own. She knew that trust was not easily given, especially to an outsider. She had seen it time and time again, the way fear could paralyze a community, turning neighbor against neighbor. The whispers and furtive glances spoke volumes about the tension that gripped the neighborhood. But she also knew that somewhere within the labyrinthine alleys and bustling markets, someone had seen something, knew something that could break the case wide open. It was a matter of finding that one person willing to speak up. She just needed to find a way to reach them, to break through the walls of silence and earn their trust. Cho's determination was unwavering, her resolve steeled by the knowledge that lives depended on it. Days turned into nights, each passing hour marked by frustration and a growing sense of urgency. The clock was ticking, and Cho felt the weight of every second slipping away. The longer the investigation dragged on, the more vulnerable Hyejin and Sujin became. Their faces haunted her, a constant reminder of what was at stake. The killers were still out there, and they would not hesitate to silence anyone who dared to cross them. Cho knew that the danger was real, and the stakes were higher than ever. She had to act fast for the sake of the victims and the community she had come to care for deeply. The deeper Cho delved into the case, the more she realized that Jae Hoon's murder was no random act of violence. It was a carefully orchestrated hit ordered by a ruthless criminal syndicate that had its hooks deep within the city's underbelly. Whispers of the syndicate's activities had circulated for years: extortion, smuggling, violence. But their grip on the community, fueled by fear and intimidation, had kept them one step ahead of the law. Now, with Jae Hoon's murder, they had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated the determination of a detective who refused to back down, who was willing to risk everything to bring them to justice. Cho knew that the syndicate would be watching her every move, waiting for her to make a mistake. But she would not be deterred. She would use their fear against them, turn their carefully constructed world of shadows against them. Section 5. A mother's strength, a daughter's innocence. As the investigation intensified, so did the danger to Hyejin and Sujin. Cho knew she had to gain their trust, to convince them that she was their only hope. She visited them often, bringing small gifts for Sujin, sharing meals with Hyejin. Slowly, tentatively, a bond began to form. Cho saw the strength in Hyejin's eyes, the fierce love for her daughter that fueled her every breath. She saw the innocence in Sujin's smile, the way she looked at Cho with a mixture of curiosity and hope. Cho knew that she couldn't let them down, that their safety was now inextricably linked to her own. She would be their shield, their protector, no matter the cost. Section 6. The Detective's Shield. Cho arranged for a safe house, a place where Hyejin and Sujin could be protected while she worked tirelessly to dismantle the syndicate piece by piece. She knew she was walking a tightrope, every move she made scrutinized, every decision carrying life or death consequences, but she refused to be intimidated. She would use their fear against them, turn their web of secrecy against them. She worked late into the night, piecing together fragments of information, following leads that often turned into dead ends. But she never lost sight of her goal, the promise she had made to a grieving widow and her frightened child. Section 7. Threads of Fear. Days bled into weeks, each passing hour a testament to Cho's unwavering dedication. She cultivated informants, exploiting the syndicate's own paranoia, turning their fear into her weapon. She followed the threads of fear that ran through the organization, unraveling their network of power, exposing their vulnerabilities. Each piece of information, each whispered confession, brought her one step closer to the truth. She knew the syndicate would not go down without a fight. They were desperate, backed into a corner, and desperate men were capable of anything. Section 8, a desperate gamble. The tension in the air was thick as Cho closed in on the syndicate's leader, a ghost-like figure known only as the Dragon. She knew he was ruthless, cunning, and always one step ahead. She devised a plan, a risky gamble to draw him out, to force him into making a mistake. It was a dangerous game, one with potentially deadly consequences, but she knew she had to take the risk. She had come too far, sacrificed too much to let him slip away. She owed it to Jae Hoon, to Hyejin, to Sujin, and to herself to see justice served. Section 9. The Price of Justice. The final confrontation was swift and brutal. The dragon, cornered and desperate, proved to be a formidable opponent. But Cho was ready for him, her years of experience and unwavering determination giving her the edge. In the aftermath, as sirens wailed in the distance, Cho stood amidst the wreckage, the weight of her actions settling upon her. Justice had been served, but not without a price. She had stared into the abyss and emerged victorious, but the darkness had left its mark. She knew that she would carry the scars of this case, both visible and unseen, for the rest of her days. Section 10. Unbroken Spirit. As the sun rose over the city, casting its golden light on Chinatown's bustling streets, Cho made her way to the safe house. She had one last promise to keep. She found Hyejin and Sujin playing in a small courtyard, their laughter a welcome sound in the aftermath of so much pain. As she watched them, Cho felt a glimmer of hope. She knew that life would never be the same for them, that the scars of loss would always remain. But she also saw their resilience, the unbroken spirit that bound them together. Justice had been served, but the real victory lay in their strength, in their unwavering capacity for love and hope in the face of unimaginable tragedy.